Some of you may recognize these pictures because most of these pictures were taken in Oakdale in 2023. The ice dams that happened in 2023 were not really a normal ice dam. They were, as I refer to them, as a gutter dam. What happened in 2023 is we had a lot of snow in December and then a hard freeze, which formed blocks of ice inside the gutters. Then as more snow came, the water just piled on top of the ice in the gutters, which created the dam, and then we got more snow all winter, which led to this. This year I'm not seeing it in the forecast, but March is also could be a snowy month. So the best way to prevent an ice dam is to not let it form. In the last couple weeks, we did get some snow and we got a hard freeze the last couple of weeks. So as people drive through your neighborhoods, you can see where problem roofs may be starting. You'll see some of the icicles starting to form. The biggest thing on the ice dams with the associations in 2023 and 2018, there was a large amount of ice dams and the associations took on the brunt of the payment for them. So I encourage everybody to know their bylaws and how your association is operating with ice dams. A lot of times the tenants are going to call up and say that their ceiling has got water stains, they have an ice dam, they want it removed. But is your association paying for the ice dam removal? A lot of them changed after 2018 and 23 to make the payment be accessible to the homeowners. So it's education so that the homeowner knows that they're going to get charged for a company removing the ice dam. Otherwise, that payment becomes an argument of, well, you're responsible for the roof, the ice is on the roof, but it just creates a little bit of an argument over who's responsible if people are not educated. This is how the ice dams form. We have air leakage by the inside of the house. It's basically ventilation and insulation. So on the eaves where you see the icicles forming is a soffit system that is allowing cold air into the roof and supposed to keep the roof cool on the inside of the house, where we get heat loss coming from the inside to meet the cold. And so as the snow melts and comes down, where the cold section is where the ice will form. The ice dams can back up and go underneath the shingles and come through the sheathing and basically damage your insulation, which ultimately would come through your ceiling, creating paint discoloration, damaged sheetrock. Most of the homes that were built back in the 80s to 2000, a lot of the townhomes that were built, you have to remember not a lot of extra care or extra cost went into building the townhomes. So the amount of insulation that you had in the 80s to, I'll say the 80s to 90s before the code changed with insulation, if you hadn't added insulation into your home in the 2000s, you probably have less than 6 inches of insulation in your attic, which is allowing the heat source from like lights, smoke alarms, your vents to allow the heat to go up through and get in to warm up the cavity in the attic. That warms up the roof line, which helps melt the snow, and then when it hits the cold, that's where it forms the dam. Once again, this is just another one showing the indoor heat loss coming up into the attic. The temperature above 32 degrees melts the snow comes down as water. It hits the soffit area or the gutter area there on the left. That basically will freeze and create a dam and then back the water up through the shingles, creating the damage. Condensations, there's a few different forms of condensation. Attic condensation, like I just said, with a lot of the homes allowing the heat to go through the ceiling into the bottom side of the attic. A lot of the homes that were built in the 80s and 90s, when they installed the bath fans and dryer vents, they didn't vent them through the roof. They just vented them up into the attic area. So all that hot air is in your attic where it's hitting the underside of the roof. I had one association that had an ethnic group that had like 9 people basically huddled around space heaters trying to heat themselves. Well, there were kerosene heat source, so that was creating moisture, and all this moisture was going up through the ceiling to the underside of the roof sheathing. They had about a 1/2 inch of frost on the bottom, looked like the inside of a freezer, which created mold on the bottom side of their roof, and their roof sheathing was soft. So we had to replace all the roof. I mean, tear off all the way down to the sheathing in the spring because they created all this condensation. As I was telling Craig, and Craig was telling me today that he drove through an association, I can tell by driving through like how your roof is if you have hot spots. So I look at it like when roofs were replaced, if somebody missed a vent, or if the Brown vent from your heater or dryer or bathroom is basically blowing on the inside of your roof sheathing, it'll create it like a basketball in a fresh snowfall, and you can see spots where you have basically melting the underside of the shingle. These should be looked at because those are problems. I mean, somehow it's getting hot there and creating that condensation, which is melting the snow. As the vents blow up, during roofing projects, I've been called out to that, people's bath fans have fallen inside their attic. When we do a roofing project, we inspect every brone to make sure that the connection inside the attic is connected to the underside of the roof. A lot of times when roofs are done and people don't check it, the brone might fall back into the attic, which is basically venting and blowing heat into the attic and not out through the proper vent. All of us here probably remember Bill Nye the Science Guy. Bath fans should be ran 10 to 15 minutes after anybody takes a shower. Sometimes, I get phone calls that, the bathroom vent is leaking, I have water on the floor. Well, generally, it's the roof is leaking. It's nothing to do with the bath fan. So I encourage associations to educate your tenants to be able to run a bath fan. They need to run them 10 to 15 minutes. The kitchen fans, we just had one, as I was talking to Lynn and Mark, homeowner called up, the roof's leaking. We tried to educate them that you have to run your bath fan 10 to 15 minutes, it's condensation. The steam goes up the tube, and as it goes up the tube into the cold air space, it turns back to a liquid, runs back down, gravity comes out the bath fan onto the bathroom floor. We'll educate the people when we get a work order and try to talk them out of having somebody come out to the association or to their unit, because once we go out to the unit, we tell them it's a chargeable charge. Whether it's going to be your association assesses it back to you or a charge to you, we're letting you know that if we come out, it is going to be a chargeable charge. There are situations where the Brown vents were not insulated properly, the tube. So on the outside of the tube, you have warm air going up, cold air will come back, or the liquid will come back down on the outside, which generally goes on to the ceiling around the vent, not through the vent. You can see in the left picture there at the bottom, if you look at the gutter, how the gutter is smiling. So where the downspout was and all the water was going, it basically pulled that gutter off the lower section of the roof. This on the right, is one of the valleys where all the water from 3 different intersections were coming down. Here is what I was just talking about on the picture on the left. If you can't really see up at the top, there was a vent that we uncovered that basically was blowing And on the right here, that vent was covered with snow. In Blaine, I had one of the associations that had centrifugal furnaces, the centrifugal pipe. Well, whoever installed them didn't install them properly, so basically when it snowed, the drift of the snow would go over the top and shut off their furnaces. So it happened a couple different years before they had to hire an HVAC company to come out and redo their pipes to make them 3 feet above the roof line. Window condensation is my third type of condensation. A lot of our phone calls that we get over the winter on like the last couple weeks was our windows are fogging, our windows are, condensation. Skylights have condensation. 2 of them happen to be from projects that we had changed the windows in the last couple of years. Well, if you remember your parents' house or, houses in the townhouses that didn't have the windows and Tyvek and the energy done properly, you could feel the wind go in and out of the house. So the house was breathing, you didn't have a problem with condensation. But after we come and we basically do, say, a siding job or window replacement, we're caulking and sealing the windows and installing the Tyvek and the house wrap and the window tape. We're making the house more energy efficient, which is also trapping all of the moisture and everything inside the home. So April airs are another problem that a lot of the tenants don't understand about. When you have an April air, you have 2 different codes, spring and summer and winter. You need to change them during the winter to the winter mode, or you're pumping more condensation into your home over the winter. Yes, it's stopping the wood floor, which April air was kind of made for, but you have more condensation and less air movement. With the windows, most of the heat registers around your townhomes are right on the floor, right below a window. So with that register blowing, if you don't do anything about it, it's blowing straight up the wall towards the bottom of your window. Well, the moisture in the air is trying to escape through the least path of resistance, which is the window, so that hot air from the furnace is hitting the cold air on the window and creating moisture on the window, which can damage millwork and the window frame itself. I recommend you put a diffuser on the bottom. They're at Menards, Home Depot, Lowe's, basically a vent that blows it out into the room instead of right up the wall line. Spring walkthrough. Here are some of the items to go after a winter to think about when you're doing your spring walkthroughs. A lot of times what I see are garage door wraps. They might be damaged from rodents, from salt or rust, or from snowplows. A lot of times I had one association, new snowplow driver, so he hit 83 out of about 160 garage doors. Not a profitable year for the snowplow company. Gutters and downspouts. A lot of the associations have downspouts if you have adjoining units that come down in between the garages. If those were in the snow and if they had an extension, snowplow, delivery drivers, whoever it may be, would run over those downspout extensions or possibly damage the gutter on the building. The shoveling of the snow near the entrances, basically the downspouts come down near the entrances. I see a lot where everybody, not this winter, but everybody has piled the snow 6 feet high on top of the gutter extension, damages it, takes it off, accidentally steps on it. Things to look for when you're having your walkthrough. Sidewalks, I have one in Egan just yesterday, basically heaved and prevented the door from opening. When we get this, we didn't have a lot of moisture in the ground this year, but with the cold temperatures and the frost, it heaved the sidewalk and pushed the bottom of the door up tight so that the homeowner couldn't get out her front door. It also cracked her whole garage floor about 1.5 inches wide and about 1 inch tall. I didn't think it was a bad winter this year, but I mean, certain situations, a lot of these associations were built on, I won't call it a wetland, but a lot of water content in the ground before they were built. Caulking around any doors, windows, the masonry to determine if it's missing or shrunk, causing water intrusion and an access point. A lot of I've done probably 3 to 4 associations where they didn't have brick flashing installed on top of the brick. So the water was coming down the siding and getting behind the brick and basically disintegrated the sheathing in the inside, in between the sheetrock and the brick, which then caused mold inside the house because the water was getting in to the bottom of the wall. Now, the brick also was falling off, so we had to basically take all the brick off, repair the sheathing, fix the mold. In some of the units where the mold was in the sheetrock, go onto the inside and basically remove the sheetrock and insulation and repair it. Some of these were not even 10-year-old associations, so it went back on the builder. But you do, like I said earlier, have to remember that when in the 90s to 2000, when they were slapping these buildings up, and I worked at the lumber yard at that time, so I was delivering all the lumber, but they were slapping these up as fast as they can with kind of the motto that not going to be our problem when something goes wrong. I won't call it humorous, but it's from me working in the lumberyard and seeing the addresses and the townhomes and the houses that have been delivered and how 40 years difference of some builders caring, some building, I mean, I can point different things out on different builders that I wish, somebody would have changed it when they were being built. So on a garage door wrap, you have to picture, you do the sides, then you do the top. So any water that comes down, it's kind of a shingled effect that basically go down. So even though the top is never damaged, you're trying to slide a piece underneath the top part, which labor-wise is more work to try to repair something. And then if you do it like even in a white color, you're going to have a new piece on the side and an old piece going across, and then the homeowner's going to say, it didn't look like that before. I recommend doing the whole thing. I do have an association up in Shoreview that had a problem with rodents and heaving. So we did there, and we had to do a test one, but we basically had to do the sides. We didn't do the top, but because of their heaving and the movement and being built on a marsh, we put the sides about an 8-inch piece on the bottom, and then we made a sleeve where we put the other part of the side over it, so if it did heave, it moved the piece inside the sleeve, if that makes sense. Which they had, for a few years, they had to keep replacing the legs because with the heaving, it kept on crushing the side. So we look at each situation and try to find the most economical way to do that. Siding repairs, looking at the cracks or broken pieces, a lot of it could be from shoveling, could be from plowing. So in your entryways or the front of the garages, somebody may have damaged the vinyl siding. The wood and composite, see if you have paint peeling or if there's any signs of deterioration. Windows, if the glass itself has started to fog, that is telling you that the seal between the glass has leaked. So look into getting windows. I know a lot of the association windows are homeowner responsibility, but even if you're the association doing your spring walkthrough, think about if you want the windows in the different units basically looking not so new, shabby. So you can tell the homeowner that maybe they need to get their glass replaced. But that's a battle for the board and the homeowners to fight. Roofing, if you did have any ice dams, if you did have any ice dams removed, look for remnants of the shingles that may have came off from roof raking or ice dam removals. When we do any of the complexes or any of the roofs, we come back in the spring and basically do an inspection to make sure that nothing was damaged during any removal. If it's just a couple of the units, we generally don't, but if we're in a whole complex with the dams that were in 2023, it's inevitable that some part of the shingle is going to stick with the ice. Furnace caps, once again over the winter or even during the summer, look for loose or missing furnace caps. A lot of the caps that were installed in the 90s and 2000 were known as Chinaman's cap, so it looks like one of the little hats that they used to wear. Those are no longer up to code. So those can, if they rust on the sides, they can collapse, or they're now starting to blow off because of the rust. This is roof lines. This is just something to look at as far as the roof lines. We had a home that basically they had a handyman come out and basically install blackjack where their roof line meets their shingles. He thought he did a great job, but if you look on the left, you'll see the pinholes and everything where the water was still leaking through. This basically made the whole roof get replaced because anywhere where the roof lines around the house had so much of the blackjack on the shingles and up the wall lines, so we had to remove the shingles and install new step flashing, wrap the ice and water up, and fix the roof line. The house was in kind of need of repair. You have to look at the age of the shingles and the age of the roof. So if somebody has just replaced your roof and somebody roof rakes and they're dropping that roof rake and scraping all the granules off, well, that might void the warranty of the roof. So the associations generally, where I was saying at the beginning, know your bylaws and who's responsible for what, because if you one of the associations quit being responsible for roof raking or snow removal, and so they had homeowners, it was a nightmare. They had just had their roof, so then the spring walkthrough, they wanted all the roof repairs done, but they didn't know what handyman they had brought in, and they didn't know who, what, why. So the HOA has to take kind of a stance in the bylaws to cover who's responsible and who can do the work.